What is up, everybody? Matt Moda here to give you some NFL player prop bangers. We're talking Thursday night football, week 10, Bengals versus Ravens. Pretty awesome Thursday night football game that we have on tap. I have 3 NFL player prop picks for you guys to lock in for this Thursday night football game. Luckily, the NFL has been hot for us. I can't say the same about the NBA, but we're talking NFL in this video. That continued in week 9. We had an okay Thursday night football for week 9. We had an okay Sunday, but really on Monday, we had a great Monday night football. We got both of our plays to cash on Monday night football, and we were up over 3 units on the entire week of week 9. That now makes it over 27 units of profit on these NFL player props on the entire season, with an ROI just below 30%, above 29%. Just an incredible run that we are on in this NFL season. Basically, since week 3, we've just been on fire. If we've had a down week since week 3, it was a slight one, and it's just been an amazing run that we are on. Hopefully that continues for Thursday night football. As I mentioned, I got 3 plays for you guys to lock in, and let's get right into it. Play number 1. Obviously, we're talking Bengals versus Ravens. I'm taking Deontay Johnson, 25 plus receiving yards, plus 125 odds at bet 365. I'm only putting a half unit on this one because I do understand that this one carries a little bit more risk, not from an odds perspective, but from a play perspective than most of the plays that I give. I've got to be honest, there is not a ton of data to back this up. Johnson only played 30% of the snaps last weekend. He did not receive a single target. That's why I'm playing it for a half unit. With that said, the Ravens just annihilated the Broncos last week. There's really no need for them to force the issue with a new receiver, trying to get him acclimated. Might as well hold him out a little bit, not risk injury, have him another week to learn the playbook and stuff like that. Now he has another week on his belt learning the playbook, playing with Lamar Jackson. And the prediction here is that the Ravens are going to make it a point to get Deontay Johnson much more involved much more involved this week than what he was last week. I'm kind of comparing this to what we saw from the Chiefs and DeAndre Hopkins on Monday Night Football. Now, it's not the same scale, of course. I'm not expecting Deontay Johnson to go off for 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Definitely not. But it's a different situation, I should say. The Chiefs needed Hopkins to kind of be an alpha receiver after losing Rashee Rice. The Ravens just needed to bolster their wide receiver core in general, which is why they traded for Deontay Johnson. But they are going to need to get Johnson involved for the stretch run for the Ravens. That's why they got him in the first place. So again, he only played 30% of the snaps last week, but in a game against the Bengals that could end up being a shootout like it was the first time these two teams played, where the score was like 40-34, the guess here is that the Ravens are going to make it a point to get Deontay Johnson involved. And honestly, 25 yards is such an incredibly low number. It could only take another 30% of snaps, and it could take 1 target for him to get this on 1 reception, because the Ravens are kind of a high ADOT type of team, especially for their receivers. So I feel as though this is a worthy gamble for a half unit play. Again, plus 125 odds at bet 365. Definitely not breaking the bank on this one. That's our first play. Next up, we're going with Mark Andrews, anytime tater, anytime touchdown, plus 230 odds at FanDuel. Also putting a half unit on this one. So the 2 Ravens receivers, I'm just risking 1 unit total. Half unit on Deontay Johnson, half unit on Mark Andrews. Now, looking at Andrews, a lot of people, especially those of you that had him in fantasy, probably just have a visceral reaction when you hear Mark Andrews' name. He had a horrible stretch. I mean, he didn't score for the first 4 games of the season, something like that. He had 2 games in which he actually did not have a single reception. But things have turned around for Mark Andrews. He's been decently involved. He's gotten over like 35 or more receive, which I get that's a low number, but he's had a decent amount of receiving work in 4 of the last 5 games. He scored in 3 of the last 4 games as well, including 1 game in which he had 2 touchdowns. And in the first 4 games of the season, he didn't do anything. But, all the film nerds watched the film of Mark Andrews, said physically, he looks good. He's when he's running his routes, he's getting open. They're just not having him run a ton of routes. He was also so valuable as a blocker that they mostly kept him in to do that. But it's been much better over the past 5 games. You look at from week 5 and on, Mark Andrews has the 2nd most receptions on the Ravens, the 2nd most yards per target, and in that stretch, he's got the 3rd highest route participation on the Ravens as well, only behind Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers. In terms of the red zone, 0. He had 0 red zone targets the first 4 games of the year. Since then, he's got 6 combined red zone targets in the 5 games since. It's also a plus matchup against the Bengals for tight ends specifically. It was the case last year for tight ends, same defensive coordinator. It's also the case this year. You look at from week 3 and on, the Ravens have allowed the third most receiving yards to tight ends, along with the third most receptions to tight ends, and they've allowed the most receiving touchdowns to tight ends. They're tied with a couple other teams, but literally the most receiving touchdowns allowed to tight ends. Mark Andrews didn't score last week. It was a Zay Flowers show, but he had scored 3 straight weeks prior to that. And again, the Ravens are most likely going to need to keep up with the Bengals offense that has been pretty explosive recently. I'm guessing that Mark Andrews has a good game. I thought the touchdown, especially at the plus 230 odds, was a much, much better play than his yards, which I think is accurately priced, and I didn't really see any value on the yards, but touchdown I think is great, especially at plus 230. Half unit play there. That's play number 2. Last up, our third and final pick of the video. Joe Burrow, 300 plus passing yards, plus 230 odds at bet 365. Now, this is something that I've been on, almost a system play. QB passing yards against the Ravens is absolutely a system play. And it's honestly by design of the Ravens defense. It's how they want to play defense. They're a pass funnel. You cannot run on them, but they can be had through the air. You look at their season so far. They've allowed the fewest rushing yards per game on the lowest rushing yards per attempt. They've allowed the lowest yards after contact and the third lowest adjusted yards before contact per attempt. Just a ton of stats showing you how good this Ravens rushing defense is. But with that in mind, they can be had through the air. They've allowed the most passing yards per game, and by a pretty wide margin too. They've allowed 301.8 passing yards per game. Not only are they the only team that's allowed 300 or more passing yards per game, the next closest team is at 273 passing yards per game, 25 yards above the team that's allowed the second most. It's a remarkable gap between them and the next closest team. For context, you look at this entire season, only one quarterback has not hit their passing prop against the Ravens. Now for Joe Burrow, obviously we're pumping this up to 300 plus yards, getting it at plus 230 odds. I'm putting a full unit. I should have mentioned that if I haven't yet. It's Joe Burrow, 300 plus passing yards for a full unit, plus 230 odds at bet 365. But every single quarterback, as I mentioned, has hit their passing yardage prop against the Ravens. That includes Bo Nix. And he only threw for 224 yards, so it's not like it was a crazy ceiling game for Bo Nix, but his passing prop was at around 215. In this exact matchup earlier this year, Joe Burrow threw for 392 yards against the Ravens. Now, Burrow's only hit 300 yards twice this season. I like for him to go over tonight. The Bengals are one of the past happiest teams in the NFL. They've got the highest neutral pass rate in the NFL. They've got the highest first half passing rate in the NFL as well. And kind of similar to what I said about Deontay Johnson and Mark Andrews, the Bengals are going to need to keep up with the Ravens. The Ravens are most likely going to score a bunch of points against the Bengals, which means that the Bengals are going to need to pass to keep up. My guess is that they're going to have success doing so. And that's all we got. 3 bangers for you guys to lock in. Only 2 units risked. Half unit on 2 plays, full unit on the third one. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to comment. Make sure to subscribe. And then the last thing I'll mention before we get out of here is that I do have a Dub Club where I send all my plays out for $5 a month. I'm going to be traveling the rest of this week, so I'm not going to have any NBA videos. So if you want to have my plays sent to you to get all of them early, not worrying about needing to check social media or anything like that, sign up for the Dub Club. Again, it's $5 a month. It gets everything that I play sent directly to your phone. I will have a video. Obviously, we have Thursday Night Football. I will have one. I'm trying, most likely, depending on my schedule, going to have one for Sunday as well. And then I'll be back as normal on Monday. But if you don't want to worry about it, you just want everything sent to you, check out the Dub Club. Again, only $5 a month. But I do give out everything for free. So follow me on Twitter at JediModi if you want everything for free there. We'll also be giving out everything for free on YouTube as well. I just give out everything first to Dub Club so you're able to get the same odds that I get. That's all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching and have a good one.